Hello, my name is Elena Groff, and I am the founder and camp director of the Lesbian Fiction Campfire, a group on Facebook dedicated to sharing our stories, old and new. And yesterday I got together with a group of my writer friends to read from our work. Our first reader is Rita Potter, and she'll be reading from her recent book, Love or Hate, which I've read and really recommend. It talks about how divisions in our society are disrupting relationships, and how, if we really had to walk in the other person's shoes, we would really understand better how they think and why they feel the way they do. So, unfortunately, I didn't remember to turn on the recording when we were in the actual meeting soon enough, so Rita was kind enough to re record her reading, which I will play for you now.
I'm Rita Potter, and today at the campfire, I'm going to be reading a scene from my new release, Love or Hate. It centers around a progressive lesbian and a conservative Christian who end up switching bodies. Who doesn't love a good body switch? This is the first scene where the two characters meet, so I'm just going to jump right into the story and let you figure out what's going on. What's going on here? A woman's voice called out just as Rain was about to make her move on the idiot who stood on her pile of signs. Rain turned towards the voice. A slender, yet shapely woman hurried towards them. Her long blonde hair was swept to one side and her flowered dress flowed freely in the breeze. Rain stared as if she'd never seen a woman before. Ivy, you need to get back to the rest of the group. It's not safe for you here, the man said as he stepped off Rain's pile of signs. His wife? An idiot like him couldn't have such a beautiful wife. Jesus, she needed to put it back in her pants. The woman was obviously the enemy. The woman, Ivy, fixed him with a glare. I think you need to cool down. But she started it. If Rain wasn't so angry, she'd probably laugh at his juvenile response. I was simply trying to collect my signs when this moron decided to harass me. Who you calling a moron? The man stepped toward her again. Please, Mr. Haskins, would you please go? Ivy pleaded. Mr. Haskins? Most likely not her husband. Although some of those right-wingers call their wives mother, so maybe they call their husbands mister? Nah, that was a stretch. He paused and leered at Ivy. At least that's how Rain saw it. Sit with me on the bus on the way back? Ivy closed her eyes and sighed. Okay, if you just go now. Haskin pointed his finger at Rain. You're lucky Ivy just saved your ass. Rain laughed, knowing it would get under his skin. How can you resist such a manly man who threatens women? He stopped and his back stiffened. Before he could turn, Ivy said, I'll see you on the bus. He continued walking away. I'm sorry about that, Ivy said. Why? You didn't do anything. That asshole did. Why do women like you defend guys like him? Women like me? Ivy's amber eyes flashed anger. And what kind of woman would that be? Women that dress like that. I see. Ivy put her hand on her hip and drew her lips together. I suppose I should dress like a man? Like you? Snap! At least this one had some spunk. Never mind. Go follow your man. He's not my man, and I don't like your implications. Implications? Whoa, a little hoity-toity, aren't you? Damn it. Since when was she someone who said hoity-toity? This woman was really getting under her skin. You're calling me hoity-toity. Ivy smirked and pointed at Rain's Doc Martens. Those boots probably cost more than all my shoes combined. Why are you so angry? Because you're so full of judgment. Judgment? Are you serious? You and your lot think you've been anointed the morality police so you can spread your hate. Hate? The vein in Ivy's neck throbbed. Jesus is about love, not hate. Seriously? You honestly believe that shit? You people are the most hateful people I've ever seen. You people? Really? Who exactly is you people? You don't know a thing about me. Oh, yes, I do. If I know one of you, I know all of you. Rain's voice rose, even though she was trying to keep her cool. This woman was unbelievable. Really, since you know me so well, tell me, who do I hate? Oh, well, that's easy. Immigrants, blacks, gays, transgendered, Muslims, anybody that's different than you. Ivy bent and picked up one of the signs. And what do you call this? Rain's eyes widened when she read the sign. Jesus sucks? That was harsh. She hadn't paid attention to what they said. Rain grabbed the corner of the sign, but Ivy held on. No, you tell me. Tell me if you think this is okay. Tell me this isn't hateful. Rain tugged harder on the sign, but Ivy seemed to have a death grip on it and wouldn't release it. Well, it's not my sign. It even sounded ridiculous to Rain's ears. Seriously, that's the best you've got? Ivy pulled harder. An electric charge filled the atmosphere, and a strong smell of sulfur permeated the surroundings. An older woman with long gray hair and eyes that nearly matched the color of her hair stepped toward them. She pointed her index finger at Rain and then turned it to Ivy. Love, hate, hate, love. The older woman grasped the sign, and Rain's hand involuntarily released it. Ivy let go as well, and the woman held it over her head. Love or hate, love or hate. She chanted it over and over. A loud thunderclap reverberated between the buildings as she ripped the sign in half and threw it to the ground. The older woman locked gazes with Rain. Will you choose love or will you choose hate? And that's been my reading from Love or Hate, my release. I was the most liberal person. I was extremely liberal. I was all those type things. I've just discovered I'm pretty moderate when it all comes down to it. After dealing with people from the coast, it's like, oh, I thought I was really, in my community, I'm like a rebel. I'm all out there, but I really am a little bit more center of the road, and want everybody to try to get along and get to know each other and to work with things. So it was probably the book that I've done the most soul searching on. It was the hardest book for me to write by far. The only thing that saved me is what's not to love about body switching. I mean, I could use my humor. I mean, you can put people in some really fun situations when you start body switching people. So that was the thing that saved me, is being able to body switch in different capacities and in different ways. And of course, when's the best time for the first switch to happen? I won't give anything away, but just think, when would be the best time for a conservative lesbian to end up or a conservative Christian to end up in a lesbian's body? And that's where I went with it. So it was truly a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. Some of the comments that I've gotten from readers who, one of the things I've been told over and over again is, we're afraid to speak out. We're afraid to speak out and say, yeah, maybe we do want to talk about some things, but nobody wants to talk about those things because somebody's going to jump on them. Somebody's going to pile on. Somebody's going to, ruin their writing career if they speak out and say something that's slightly controversial. And my feeling is, controversial is the beginning to having a conversation. We need to have more real conversations and true conversations with each other. And that's why I wrote this book, is to get people talking to each other, and it be okay to have some differences of opinion, and it be okay to say something and not have people, pile on because, you're being, some kind of phobic, or you're doing something wrong, or that's gotten way out of hand. And I really wrote this to encourage people to talk to each other, to really get to know each other, because the characters in the book, the Nash family that I deal with, I know people like that. I know Ivy and her family. I know people that live around me that are good people. So that's where I wrote the book from. That's why I wrote the book. And I hope everybody gives it a read. Even if you don't like it, that's cool. As long as it makes you think, I'm good, give me 1 star and say you hate me, but read it. That's all I really want. So I think I'm nearing the end of my time. So I will stop rambling if Elena wants to say something.
Do you wish you're at the end of your time? You have 3 minutes left.
I got 3 minutes. I could ramble for 3 more minutes if you need me to ramble.
No, it's okay. We'll let Carol read.
Interpretive dance. I heard an interpretive dance.
But I don't have the right clothes on for interpretive dance. Sorry.
Everyone, Thank you very much, Rita, for reading. That was great, and I love your book. Like I said, and I agree wholeheartedly that we need more friendly, civil conversations in our society. It's gotten way too out of hand, and even in our own community, you would think that as marginalized people, we would learn how to talk to one another better than we do. So thanks for
That's
writing
why I
that
wrote
book.
it.
Carol, you ready?
Yes. This is my book, Lancelot, Her Story. I'm Carol Ann Douglas. I worked on the Feminist News Journal Off Our Backs for 35 years. I lived part of the year in Washington, D.C., and part at Carefree, a lesbian community in Florida. I've written 4 lesbian novels, all of them available in print and ebook from Amazon and Bella Books. I'm going to read from Lancelot, Her Story, in which Lancelot is a woman in disguise. Lancelot and Guinevere are both lesbians. Guinevere, the daughter of a king, was required to marry King Arthur. This is the story of how Lancelot and Guinevere met. The night before their meeting, King Arthur, who believes Guinevere hasn't had a child because he imagines he is unable to get her pregnant, asks her to sleep with his cousin so there can be an heir to the throne. Guinevere, whose mother died in childbed, has been secretly taking a potion to prevent conception, but she can't admit that. She angrily rejects the king's suggestion. The story begins the next morning. Guinevere had 1,000 tasks that morning, 1,000 ceremonies to attend to, 1,000 sick ladies begging her to leave, let them rest, 1,000 servants asking questions, 1,000 matters needing her approval. All she wanted was to escape somewhere, scream and sob out the bitterness that was inside her after Arthur's words the night before. She would not weep in the care, lest someone hear her. Finally, in the afternoon, she was able to put on her riding breeches and slip away to the stables. She took her favorite horse and, despite the surprised look on the stable master's sun-browned face, rode off alone. I shall ride alone for a while, she said in a haughty voice, as if it were quite usual for the queen to do so. And of course, there was nothing that the stable master could say. She was married to a man who cared so little about her that he wanted her to lie with another man. When Guinevere thought she was deep enough in the forest to be away from any passers-by from Camelot, she got down from her horse, flung herself on a rock, and began to sob noisily. After some time, she heard a voice saying, "My lady, why are you so distressed? May I help you?" Guinevere looked up, annoyed at being interrupted, and even more irritated when she saw a warrior in chainmail. Was there nowhere she could go to escape men for a short time? Then she saw the concern in the long, angular face. And what a face it was, handsome beyond anything in a bard's tale. Those soft brown eyes. Could it be that this was no man, but a woman? The warrior was taller than any woman Guinevere knew, and looked far stronger. Guinevere stared, taking in the glossy black hair, the slender but muscular build, the face that showed no beard or even stubble. The skin was weather-worn, but smoother than a man's, and this warrior was not young enough to be a boy. Guinevere rose and took a few steps closer, moving so close that she could smell the warrior. Her heart leapt. Despite a certain horsey odor, this warrior smelled like a woman. In fact, like a woman on the rag. There actually was a woman who had learned to fight. Guinevere marveled at the woman's muscular arms that contrasted with her large, gentle brown eyes. There was a hint of sorrow in those beautiful eyes. How had this woman ever managed to live concealed as a man? She must be daring beyond all measure. Could Guinevere ask the woman why she pretended to be a man and tell her how admirable her bravery was? No, the woman would not be pleased that someone had seen through her disguise. She would be alarmed and might go away. Guinevere wished she could confide in this woman, tell that her husband had pressed her to lie with another man. Guinevere thought she could never tell anything so terrible to anyone, but there was so much sympathy in the woman warrior's eyes. Then it occurred to Guinevere that she must be red-eyed and haggard from weeping. Oh dear, I've never looked so ugly, she exclaimed. Lancelot reached out a hand to wipe away the lady's tears. The warrior was moved by the warmest expression she had seen on any face since her mother had died. You are beautiful beyond belief, she told the lady. She touched the damp cheek and found it the softest substance she had ever felt. Why are you so sad? Lancelot withdrew her hand, and the lady's right hand enfolded it. I'm not sad anymore. The dark-haired lady looked at her in a way that encompassed her whole being. Her hand made Lancelot feel warm, and the rest of her felt warm also. Her heart raced. Somehow this lady was different from any other. For a while, they simply looked at each other. Who are you? The lady asked. I'm Lancelot of the Lake from Lesser Britain. I've come to fight for King Arthur because I have heard that he is the best and most just king there is. And what is your name, my lady? The lady dropped Lancelot's hand. You will see me every day at Camelot. I am sure the High King will accept you into his service. Lancelot's heart raced even faster at the thought that the lady lived at Camelot. Let me ride there with you, my lady. It's not safe for you to ride alone. The lady raised her eyebrows and pursed her lips with displeasure. I know that you did not mean to be discourteous, but that is not a pleasant thing to say to a lady. Please never say that to me again. Lancelot nearly stumbled over a log. Pardon me, my lady. I am rough and ill-mannered. I meant no discourtesy. I shall never say such a thing again. The lady smiled, the most wonderful smile that Lancelot had ever beheld. Neither spoke. Finally, Lancelot shook herself like one awakening from a dream and pulled back. The lady would think Lancelot was rude for standing so close. The lady sighed. I suppose we must go to Camelot. Lancelot helped the lady onto her horse. The touch of her hand was enough to make Lancelot's face hot. She realized she must be blushing. As they started off, Lancelot said, Pardon me, my lady, but I still do not know your name. The lady hesitated. I like to hear you call me your lady. That suits me very well. The lady smiled again. I am the lady from Paris. Lancelot was full of joy, a marvel that she would see this lady every day and perhaps talk with her. She might even touch her hand again. It seems that you are fond of the forest. Tell me what you like about it, the lady requested. She looked much in command of her horse, more so than any woman Lancelot had seen except herself. The forest is the grandest place in the world, my lady, Lancelot began. Moss is finer than marble, and flowers are far lovelier than jewels. At every turn, there is something unexpected. When you go out in the morning, you never know what you'll see, whether it might be a red deer or, if you're lucky, a fox or a badger. She went on in this way and forgot her shyness. Too soon they came out of the forest and approached the care on a hill. The lady asked her to tell about other hills she had seen, and so she did. They rode to the outer wall of the town, and the guards let them enter without asking who they were. To Lancelot's surprise, the guards saluted, and many townspeople bowed. The town smelled rank from the ditches that ran through it, and Lancelot shuddered at the thought of living with that smell. A great number of warriors and serving men crowded up to them in the courtyard, and the men jostled each other to get to the lady's horse and help her. The crowd drew back as a tall man with red gold hair, one of the handsomest men Lancelot had ever seen, approached the lady's horse. He walked as if he were the only person in the courtyard. Around his neck was a gold torque, and his tunic was embroidered with designs in gold. The nobly dressed man offered his hand to the lady, and she took it. Here is a new warrior who wants to serve you. He kindly escorted me through the forest. Thank you, Lancelot, the lady said, turning her head briefly towards Lancelot. Did you ride off alone, my dear? You know you shouldn't. It isn't safe for a queen to ride alone. The king, for that was who he must be, helped the lady dismount. King Arthur pressed the lady close and kissed her cheek. Lancelot's stomach muscles clenched. Her heart was a lump of clay. She almost wanted to turn away and leave Camelot forever. She looked away from the queen, but felt vaguely betrayed, or at least much aggrieved, though she was not sure why. She wished she could have been the one to put her arm around the queen, but no doubt that was a sin. She resolved never to look into the queen's beautiful blue eyes again, and certainly not to touch her. Lancelot's story is on sale this week. The ebook is on Amazon. There's a sequel, Lancelot and Guinevere. I worked on this book and the two Lancelot books for about 20 years. I love the Arthurian legends and have read in them widely. This book borrows particularly from Malory's account, Sir Thomas Malory, The Death of Arthur, and it brings in a number of the episodes in it with a different slant. Okay, I'm done, Elena.
Thanks, Carol. I'm going to try to find the link and put it in the chat. So if anybody's interested in checking out this book of Carol Ann's, you can find it on Amazon. And let's see.
And also Bella Books, but it's on sale on Amazon.
Okay, it's on sale. All right. Here we go. And if the other authors want to put their links to their books in the chat after they read, that would be great. Also, if anybody has any questions, you can post them in the chat window. And that way I will keep an eye out for them. And when we have Q&A, I'll go back and if you don't ask your question in person, I can bring it up in the conversation. Again, we're asking people who are not reading to turn off your video so it's not a distraction to the readers, and also to mute yourself so we don't get any feedback. Okay? All right. Now I have to find my way around my own screen because I've got like 15 windows open here. Our next reader is LL Shelton. LL is one of the administrators of the Lesbian Fiction Campfire. She was the founding administrator along with me and Gail Teller and a bunch of other folks. And she's the author of several novels and audiobooks. And she's going to read from her work in progress. So take it away, LL Shelton.
Hi, everybody. Well, if you are not familiar with me, my name is LL Shelton. I live in the United States on the East Coast in Virginia. You can find my books on Amazon. I have 6 books out, a couple short stories, and I've been in a few anthologies. I started writing in 2017 and I published in 2018, and COVID hit and life hit, and I had a lot of ups and downs, and I haven't really published anything lately, but today I'll be reading from my work in progress. Something inspired me and I'm writing more. So I hope this book will be out by maybe after the first of the year. So anybody knows me, I'm usually a little out there when it comes to antics in the campfire sometimes. I probably will not disappoint you today when I read from my work in progress. A little bit of backstory about it. Dr. Annie Banks is a veterinarian in town. She works in the animal hospital, and she does local farms and stuff like that. And she has shut off from the world. She took the death of her mother a year before really hard, and she's closed out her world. And so your typical romance, she'll find somebody, she'll fall in love and all that. That's all normal until we get to her relative. My other character is Grammy, and Grammy's a lesbian, and it's Annie's grandmother, and also with Grammy is Grammy's sister Gaga, and they get in all types of trouble. So I bring in comedy into the book, some real life situations that we up in age women can always relate to. Some of those antics is true to my life. I will not tell you if today's what I'm reading is true or not. I'll let you guess about that. But she gets in trouble a lot, and she's mischievous. And the working title is, I don't know. I'm either going to call it My Lesbian Grammy or My Life with Lesbian Grammy. Somehow I'm going to get Lesbian Grammy in there, I know. So I'm going to read from it today. And then if I have any few minutes left or anything, I might throw in some more rambles. I don't ramble as well as Rita does. So anyhow, with all that said, this is the opening chapter of the book where you meet Grammy, you meet Annie, who is her granddaughter, and you meet Gaga. And pardon me for looking this way because I'm on my phone talking to you and I have to read off my computer. So, okay, I hope you enjoy it. All right. One click after another released the 9 locks on the front door until the turn of the knob creaked the old wooden door open an inch. Annie always thought her grandmother and great aunt went overboard on security. But if that made her Grammy and her Gaga feel safe, then who was she to question? Finally, 2 eyes peeped under the chain before the door flung open. Oh, thank God you're here. She is mean as an old snake. Annie stepped through the door, wearing the evidence that she got dragged out of her bed. She wore no bra, messy hair, Disney pajamas, slippers with socks, and a fluffy parka to finish off the ensemble. Gaga, what the hell? It's after midnight. What is wrong with Grammy? Your message was to get over here as fast as I could. Well, Gaga rolled her wrinkled hands in a circle. She's okay, mostly. Head on to her room, dear. She will tell you what's going on. Annie covered a yawn as she headed to the back of the house. A light shone through the door's crack leading into her grandmother's bedroom. Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin filled the hallway. She pushed it open to find her grandmother in bed, sitting up against the headboard, parted knees with the sheet covering her lower body. She wore a Rolling Stone shirt with half-smoked joints smoldering in the ashtray on the nightstand. With her head tilted back and her mouth wide open, Annie figured her Grammy was enjoying her newly acquired buzz because there was a soft snoring sound escaping between the beats of music. Stopping by the dresser, Annie turned off the blaring guitar solo. Grammy, Annie whispered louder. Grammy. She lightly shook the sleeping woman's shoulder until her eyes popped open. What? The elder woke with a jerk. You tell me what. Are you okay? Well, hey, Annie, what you doing here this late? I received a phone call. Who called you? I did, Gaga said from the doorway. Well, you should have minded your own business and gotten the tongs from the kitchen like I asked you, sis. You're always making life so difficult. I told your crazy ass I would not use the tongs that we cook with. Annie's head swung back and forth between Grammy and her great aunt Gaga. The two sisters were like night and day, but went together like salt and pepper. Realizing she didn't know what the two sisters were arguing over and the onset of a headache, Annie raised both arms before holding up an index finger, bringing the two women to a hush. Annie sighed deeply from her belly while enjoying the room's silence. Will someone tell me why I'm here in the middle of the night and not in my warm bed? Because your grandmother's a freak, dear, Gaga chimed in. Hush, and let me tell the story, Gaga. Grammy cut her eyes in her sister's direction, then back to Annie. Well, you see, something stuck in her words stopped. Annie's eyebrows knitted together in confusion. Oh, for Pete's sakes, I have to spell it out. It's in my cooter. The thing is in my cooter. Huh? What? A few seconds of silence slipped by before Annie's eyes widened. Oh, oh, ooh. Grammy, what the hell? Annie turned to look at Gaga, who had sat by the window in the corner of the room. Don't look at me, sweetie. She held up her hands. Arthritis. Turning back to Grammy, Annie opened her mouth to say something but closed it. She shook her head to unscramble what she had heard. What? Annie rubbed her temples. What is up there, Grammy? Grammy's lips pursed for a second like a child who didn't want to answer the question. Grammy? Annie now arched one eyebrow with crossed arms. Fine. A cucumber. Well, half a cucumber. The other half is here. Grammy held up the snapped vegetable. Honey, just get it out of me. I'm getting cramps with my legs like this. Why the hell is a cucumber up there? Annie waved a finger towards the sheet, followed by an outstretched palm to stop any answer. Never mind. We need to go to the hospital. No, you're a big shot veterinarian. You paid a lot of money for that doctor in front of your name. It's the same as when you go up a horse's hoo-ha. So roll up your sleeves and go in. Gaga laughed. That's right. It's the same as a horse. Gaga, you're not helping the situation, Annie said. Gaga lifted slowly from the chair. Gaga was older and much unstable. She moved in when she started falling around her own house, and Granny would never admit it, but she loved living with Grandma. I'll go make something for us to celebrate the birth, Gaga said before her way down the hallway. Annie turned her attention back to Grammy. She washed her face with her bare hands before lifting off the bed. She headed to the bathroom where Grammy kept disposable gloves. She couldn't believe she was about to retrieve a cucumber from her Grammy's private parts. How had her life gotten to this point? 15 minutes later, the three women quietly sipped warm milk around the kitchen table. Annie made circles with the cinnamon stick in the steaming liquid with her mind a million miles away. What you thinking about? Grammy asked. Nothing really. Annie shook a finger at her. You know, one day you will hurt yourself with your antics. Grammy pretended to wave the words away with her hand. Please, when has masturbating become an antic? You need a life, young lady, something you haven't done since. Her words trailed off and Grammy became quiet. The entire room fell mute. A few minutes passed before Annie spoke two words. I know. Lifting the sweet stick, she licked the milk from it. A year may have passed since her mother's death, but the hurt felt like yesterday. If Annie could be honest with herself, she would see how she closed the door on the world a year ago. She dug her heels into work at the animal hospital with long hours and took on local farms animals as patients. There was no time for a relationship. Plus, keeping busy kept her mind off the roughest time. And then there was Grammy and Gaga. They took more energy than what she could muster. She felt the soft touch of four hands as they comforted her. Her two favorite people in the world were softly smiling at her. We miss her too, Gaga said. The past year has been hard, but sweetie, she wouldn't want you to curl up in a corner. Your mom would want you to enjoy life. Grammy ran her fingers down her messy hair of her granddaughter. Annie nodded while pushing back tears. I need to get going. It's late. I have an early appointment in the morning. Grammy, please behave and no more vegetables. You know I can't promise that, dear. Just be glad I didn't use a banana without a peel. I did that in my 20s, causing a terrible mess in my cooter. Every time I peed, I smelled banana. I give up. It's too late for you. Annie rose. Leaning over, she kissed the top of Grammy's head. Love you. Bye, Gaga. Love you too. That that's well, my work in progress right now. So I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know how much time I got left, but I hope you enjoyed it. It's there's a lot more that Grammy will get into. Um, and of course, Annie will learn how to process her grief. She'll fall in love. And Grammy will be right there to help her along the way a few times, even at the lesbian bars and everywhere else they go. So I hope you enjoy it. You can find my books on Amazon, like I said. I write across many genres. You'll find I have a vampire story out, which is one of my most popular ones. I have a escort. I saw a question come up. What's the title again? I don't know what I'm going to name it. My working title is my life with my life with my lesbian Grammy, or just my lesbian Grammy. During the Q&A, if anybody else wants to pop up some suggestions, I would enjoy it. I haven't even named the character that Annie's going to fall in love with and open up to. I haven't even named her yet, but it's still work in progress. And but I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll let Elena take back over. Thank y'all for listening.
Well, you still have 6 minutes if you want to keep.
Well, wait a minute. What am I going to do with 6?
It's all right. That was a great reading. Let me tell you, that was a very original approach.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that. It's a good thing that the sound was off, or you would have heard me guffawing.
Yeah. Well, I hope that I relate with Grammy. I will relate to a lot of us older, and I'll put myself in that group because I'm headed towards 60 myself. But us elder lesbians, that I bring out some things that happen, and we're not young anymore in the bed, and we get cramps and toes start heading towards the ceiling when the rest of the toes are on the floor, stuff like that. So I hope to bring in a whole bunch of stuff that we can relate to.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.
Our next reader is Kat Page. I see she's on here, but I don't see her. Let's see.
There I am.
There she is. Hi.
Yeah, I'm currently in my car. So all my stuff. Currently in my way from Florida to New York. So this has been a long day. But so I have my own cucumber story. My ex, I had gone away for a week and came home and was questioning why there were condoms in the trash can after my girlfriend was home by herself for a week. And she's like, it's not what you think. Like, what else could it possibly be? And then she pulls out the cucumbers out of the fridge. I'm like, can't have thrown those away? Please? So, unfortunately, I can relate to that story, just not in that degree of losing parts. So, yeah, right? Yeah. Cucumbers are a favorite, apparently. So mine is a work in progress. Technically, it's actually a complete rewrite of my very first novel I ever wrote, simply because it was literally the first novel, so I never published it. And then I've been working on it for the past year, but then COVID hit me a lot harder than I had planned. But at this rate, it should be done before the end of the year. I'm almost done with this one. I'm already starting on the second one. So it is a fantasy novel, so a little different than the last one. But so anyway, I'll just go ahead and start reading. And like I said, don't mind the car. Chinook woke to a buzzing in her head and a loud rasping knock downstairs. The knocking she could ignore, the buzzing she couldn't. It didn't hurt, though it felt like it could hurt, but it felt more distant than present, like a distant memory she was trying to forget. Knock! Again, the door rattled, loud and angry. Whoever was at the dormitory door knew nothing of patience or sleep. Begrudgingly, she cracked open an eye to check the bed across the room. If her human wasn't interested, neither was she. That was a lie. Of course she was interested. She hated herself for it at the moment. Carefully, she woke every muscle in her slender body, stretching, curling, twisting, contortions only a creature like herself could achieve. Her ears perked when hard-soled shoes scuffled along the downstairs floor. It had to be Mrs. Edwards answering the door. None of the girls dare be caught out the rooms past curfew. She glanced again at her human. Arun was finally awake. Do you feel that buzzing? Arun asked. She looked like she was in pain. Yes, Chinook replied. She laid her head against the apple and watched her human reluctantly get out of bed. Their room was nearly pitch black. A single window would normally cast the glow of day inside, but nighttime was different. That window opened to a brick wall of another building. Luna, when she wasn't obscured by clouds or the heavy fog that rolled down from the mountains, could only do so much. Knock, knock, knock. Hinges and bolts complained about their attacker. No threat of them giving just yet, but they certainly moaned about the unusual beating they were taking. They were meant to keep factory girls inside and wanton suitors outside, nothing more. Arun grabbed the candle off the little nightstand at the foot of her small bed. With a snap of her fingers, a small silver flame erupted around the wick. A quick pop or two of the unkept wick coming to life, then the flame turned to the reddish orange one expected a candle to be. You shouldn't, Chinook chided. No one is here, and it's barely anything. Arun shuffled across the room, the candle in one hand, the other holding her head. She did that when a headache struck. Chinook always felt them too. Their connection was great for talking in silence, but it came at a price. A small price, Chinook agreed, to always know where her human was. Arun cracked the door open. She could scarcely see the top of the wooden front door. It rattled with every thunderous knock. Mrs. Edwards' candle flickered, casting a dancing glow onto the floor. Who is it? The cantankerous old woman demanded. She was short, on the chubby side, but her bark could scare most of the women into behaving. No one answered. Knock. Again, Mrs. Edwards demanded an answer. Knock. Her voice was dangerous. Had one of the factory women ignored her, they'd have been soundly beaten where they stood and forced to work another shift on the looms. Now I'm really curious, Arun said. Me too. You could, fly out there and take a peek. Chinook perked up at the thought, the apple no longer tempting her into sleep. I could. Arun glared at her. What? You have to be the laziest pixie I know. Arun sat up, her wings unfurled from behind her slender frame. A wondrous pastel blue shimmer fell onto the table below. No, Minnie? That's besides the point. She needed to be careful. Although she was still invisible to everyone there but Arun, that didn't stop them from seeing her aura. During the day, it wasn't an issue, and she'd flitter about as she pleased, diving in and out of the room, searching for shinies, watching all the strange people milling about the markets, and otherwise occupying herself while her human spent her day doing boring work. Be careful, Arun commanded, as if she hadn't just ordered her to go spy on the stranger pounding at the door. This buzzing worries me. It worried Chinook too. She darted out the sole window and into the dark night. Luna was almost gone from the sky. Barely a sliver of her remained while her sister still hid behind the horizon. One last dark night to go before the alignment. No one was in the alley, not unless they were pissed drunk. She could make it to the edge of the corner of the house and take a peek from there. Knock, the door still rattled. Outside, she could hear Mrs. Edwards pleading with whomever was there. She was hell-bent on knowing who had awakened her before opening the door. Chinook eased closer to the edge. Her wings hugged her body in a poor attempt at keeping the cold at bay. The wood beneath her was dewy already. The last thing she wanted to do was slip and catch the stranger's attention. Finally, after a few careful steps, an algae squishing between her legs. So gross. It won't kill you. Still gross. What do you see? Chinook tried to focus on the figure at the door. It was as if her eyes just couldn't see what was there. It was hazy, foggy almost, as if it had rolled down from the mountain and darkened itself in the soot of factories too poor or cheap, thrown off of magic instead of charcoal and wood. I see nothing. How's that possible? Who's banging on the door then? Chinook couldn't answer that. The fog was definitely what was banging on the door. She could see in the dark as if it was daytime. It was one of the three sisters out, that is. Of all nights to be blind to the world even Therians couldn't see. The fog stopped knocking. It suddenly became eerie to not hear the incessant pounding on the door like a heartbeat marching unwilling towards the end. The world was silent. No wind rustling rubbish in the streets, no crickets playing their music, nothing. The buzzing in her head spiked, no longer just a buzzing, but a hot iron torch in the inside of her skull. Someone was casting powerful magic. The fog stopped being so blurry. It was coalescing into a figure, still inky black. She couldn't discern its race in the darkness, or if it was Fae. Without warning, Mrs. Edwards flung open the door. Light, all but dim, poured out the opening and onto the creature. Still nothing, still a blackness that sucked in the world around them and refused to release it. There wasn't even a shadow. It looked at her. Its black eyes bored into Chinook's head and buried dread inside her. It saw her. How could it see me, she wondered through the pain. It shouldn't be able to see me. Pixies were invisible to sentients and Fae alike, unless they chose to be seen or they heard her speak. But she didn't speak. She was careful to be quiet, even making sure that damp algae clinging to the eaves didn't audibly squish. What's wrong? Aaron asked. You feel panicked. It sees me, Chinook replied. Mrs. Edwards didn't make a sound. She didn't yell at the fog or try to talk to it or tell it to sod off. It was one of the other women who screamed, blood curdling. The woman was looking at the face of horror and her body responded. And that's when the sniffer's howl could be heard from in the distance. Not one, but all of them. From every corner of the city, their howls echoed in unison, a harmonious song alerting the city. Come inside. I don't like this, Aaron sounded panicked and in pain. Chinook's pain intensified as well. The more the sniffers howled, the more it hurt. Those white hounds could sense what she was sensing. Power. Power directed at her and her human. There was no doubt in her mind that whatever the black fog was, it was looking for them. She hoped it was simply because she was Fae. There were beasts and monsters that hunted her kind, sentients too, especially humans. No one knew, or no, she knew it wasn't that. The world went quiet again. The howling stopped and the branding iron pain vanished. It was as if nothing had ever happened. She looked again towards the door, where the black fog stood. There was nothing. Just the washed out road, muddy and rutted. It's gone, she said. How could it be gone? Gone? Aaron replied. Come inside. I don't like you being so far away. I'm safe. I don't care. We don't know what that was or what it can do. I'd feel better if you could see me, if I could see you. You're too protective. And that's the end of chapter 1. And all I plan to read today.
That was great. Thank you. And thank you for kind of just coming in out of your car on your way to New York. That's incredible. You know,
well, yeah. I'll say it's a little warm right now because I turned the air conditioner off, but it's been a crazy year.
Yeah, it has been a crazy year for everybody. So that this is a novel that you've already published that you're redoing? Is that?
No, I never published it the first time.
Okay.
I took the advice of just write something and then never publish it. That way you have that practice of writing a book. I did publish one book, Traveler, which is more about the desire to want to travel, you know, what I did for the past 3 years. And then I went back and revisited this as a way of, I always wanted to tell the story, but I wanted to actually not suck. So I wanted to wait till I actually had practice. And then I got COVID and was not doing well for about 3-4 months there. So now that I'm, you know, not dealing with that. I've gotten back into the habit of writing and trying to be more, present.
That's great. Well, that's those are the four readers, Rita and Carol Ann and LL. I almost said your real name, LL. I'm sorry. And Kat. Kat, how do you pronounce your name?
It's Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
It is an Irish name. Everything I write has an Irish influence because I'm Irish. But yeah, it's pronounced Katrina. I won't even bother with the rest of the name, but yes, Kat is just so much easier for people.
It certainly doesn't look like what you would expect it to sound like.
It does not. And the funny thing, like being Irish, it makes complete sense. It's like if you spoke French or German, looking at a German name, it just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's no K in Irish, so the CAI becomes a K, like Kat or Katrina. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm going to say that anybody who wants to put their video on so we can see you, and you can use the raise hand function. There are these reaction emojis that are available in the at the bottom of my screen. I don't know where they are in yours. If you want to raise your hand, if you just want to ask a question of an individual, you can. I'll try to field them as best I can. Okay. So, and Rita, I'm sorry, I cut off your reading by accident because I forgot to start the recording early enough. So let's get back together later and maybe you can direct me to a recording you have so I can kind of dub it into the.
Yep, I can do that. Or I can just record you one real quick. And
perfect.
So I'm wearing the same clothes because we don't want to think I changed clothes in between. I'm not a prima donna that has to change clothes between my readings and my questions.
Well, I'm glad we have some humor in these early readings. I'm just coming off having finished a book that's pretty grim, so it's nice to hear some laughter around here, especially the cucumber episode. That was quite impressive.
We're looking forward to that book.
John has read every one of my novels, and so he gives me running commentaries on various lesbian activities.
There's a couple questions in the chat, Elena.
Okay. From Katerina. She's asking, when are you thinking of publishing this book? Katrina, I'm sorry. Katerina for Katrina. You there?
I think
I'm here.
She's there. Okay.
I'm hoping to have it done, the first one and the second one done and published by the end of December. So beginning end of this year, beginning of next year. I'm waiting to have the second one done before publishing the first one, since I don't like cliffhangers.
Okay. Any other questions for any of the readers? Okay, I have a question for Carol Ann. Are you going to do more, or do you have a work in progress that you're doing now after you published Choosing Yellowstone?
Yes. I'll say also my other novel besides Choosing Yellowstone is Sister Matthew and Sister Rose, Novices in Love. I'm working now on a novel set in the late 70s women's movement. And one of the women is starting a press and the other is running a bookstore.
I think we need more novels that document that period that, you and I remember, but many people don't, because I think many younger folk have forgotten what we all went through trying to get where we are now, which kind of looks sometimes like we're going backwards.
I very much get that impression.
Okay. All right. Well, we can move on if you want. No more questions. You guys are so quiet, such a quiet group. I'm sorry I said to mute yourselves earlier. Now you don't have to stay mute forever, you know.
You can all say hi to my cat, Minda.
Well,
There we go. Hi. All right. Well, if there aren't any, if you think of anything you want to ask those 4 readers, you can put the question in the chat. And we're going to move on then to our next reader, who is McGee Matthews. McGee, take it away.
Okay, well, this, if you know me at all, this is not my house. It's a Zoom backdrop thing I loaded. We're still in California. We're fixing to head to Arizona, Sedona, and then Utah, and then I have to head home sooner than I wanted to. I've got some family stuff I gotta take care of, so, it happens. So that's part of being the oldest in the family. So I'm gonna blow a little dust off actually what was my first book as well. I think see, there we go. That thing doesn't work when you hold up a book. I feel like Harry Potter with the thing coming off the shelf here. Anyways, it's called Keeping Secrets, and it's got my very favorite character that I've written so far, I think. And it was my first book, so I read it sometimes and go, ooh. But you know what? That's why they're called first books, and then we hopefully keep improving as we go. So we'll see how that works out. Anyways, this is fairly early in the book, and this is Aunt Belle. Oh, we got someone coming in who keeps coming out here. Let me get that. I'm trying to do 2 things at once. Here we go. All right. Belle reread and considered the letter in her hands, the tone dark and urgent. Her niece Elizabeth usually wrote every few weeks, but talked of the weather and other bland topics. This time, Elizabeth talked about horse thieves and asked for help with her brother Jeremy. She did miss seeing the children. Well, they certainly weren't children any longer. Belle picked up the crystal decanter from her side table, pulled the stopper, and poured herself a double scotch. Not surprising that there were raiders at the ranch. Men tended to take whatever they wanted if they could get away with it. Peter could have stayed right here in Kentucky, but he had bigger aims. She took a sip from her glass. He might lose everything he had due to greed. Peter was and his religious holier than thou shit. She sipped again, smiling. She went big herself. It must be the Hepscott way. She reread the letter again. What did Elizabeth mean by to help her nephew join the army? How eloquent did you have to be to shoot a gun, for goodness sakes? Jeremy must have outgrown his stuttering by now. Belle took out a cigar, her private pleasure. She neatly cut off the end and lit the tobacco with a match from the silver box. She could hear the stomping to the music down the hall. Business was good. She took a long drag and blew out the smoke. Life was what you made it to be. It would surely anger her brother if she sent for them. She smiled and took out her pen set, spritzed the piece of paper with perfume. When it dried, she completed her invitation. She opened her safe box, took out some bills, and slipped them in the envelope with the letter. She put out the cigar in a crystal dish and headed down the hall to the saloon. The tables were mostly full, and her son Johnny, the bartender, moved quickly from one end of the bar to the other. The ladies of the house roamed the parlor, some no doubt already occupied upstairs. She took another sweeping look and headed back to her room. A good mechanic didn't need to watch every click of a well-oiled machine, and she intended to let the machine do the work. Okay, and then this is the scene with her brother after the niece and nephew head off to the Union Army. This is set in the Civil War. Belle sat in the dim saloon stirring a hot cup of tea, adding a tad of bourbon. A sliver of dawning sunlight sneaked in under the door. She took a sip. Johnny took a seat next to her. Are you sure you'll be all right, Mother? Of course, she replied. You don't need to mill about on my account. Really, it's no trouble. I haven't seen Uncle Peter in a long while. He's likely to be hotter than a hornet when he finds out. Belle tipped a bit of honey into the cup. I'm not afraid of him. Well, if you say so, I won't be too far. Just holler if you need anything. He pulled to his full height as if to claim the space and walked to the back room. Belle called out, "Charlie, you may as well come on in and sit down. You're making me nervous pacing in the shadows." Charlie hurried over and pulled out a chair. I would think that I'd met him before. I'm sure not. I don't recall your presence next door when he visited in the past, and I doubt he even met your grandparents. Belle took a spoon and ladled jam onto a piece of toast. I usually visited them at his ranch. It was much easier with the kids and all. Did I ever mention that he had 7 children, most stillborn, only the 2 survived? They sat in silence for a moment, and a shadow appeared at the front door. Belle slid back her chair and went to the foyer. With a flick of the lock, she opened the door. "Why, Peter, what a surprise!" Belle pulled the door open wider. "Do come in. You look terrible. Would you like a drink?" "At 8 in the morning?" Peter asked. "Why, I meant coffee or tea, but I'd be happy to get you something stronger." Belle pulled him closer. "It's good to see you, you beady-eyed possum. Give me some sugar." He accepted her hug and warmly patted her on the back. "I would thank you for some coffee. Charlie, can you get some coffee from the kitchen, maybe some more toast?" Belle pulled out her chair and sat back down. She waved to the seat next to her. Peter removed his hat and sat stiffly. "I've been sitting too long, but I'm too sore to stand either." He looked around. "Still a saloon and, yes, gentlemen's club?" Belle pushed the plate of bread closer to his reach. "Yes, well, it's been a long time, Victoria Belle. I've thought of you often." "Good thoughts, I hope?" "Fond thoughts." "I want to apologize. I shouldn't have shunned you. You're my sister, and what you do is between you and our Maker." He reached and touched her arm. "I hope to see you more often." "All this mush so early in the morning. My God, of course I'd love to see you too." Belle patted his hand. "I have several guest rooms that are unoccupied if you'd like to lay down. Stay as long as you wish." "If it's all the same, I'll just say goodbye to Jeremy and take Elizabeth with me before supper. It's a long drive home." Peter pulled the pipe out of his shirt pocket. "Left the wagon at the livery." "Well, you can bring it down to my barn and save some money." Belle looked at Charlie as she walked up to the table. "This is Charlene, my next door neighbor. Charlie, this is my brother Peter." He stood and said, "Ma'am." Charlie placed the coffee cup and a small plate in front of Peter. "Pleased to make your acquaintance." Belle cleared her throat. "I'm sure you have things to attend to. Thank you for the coffee." Charlie took the hint and headed to the back room. Belle knew Johnny wasn't too far away either. She expected the calm to change into a typhoon. Peter took the cup and drank a bit. "As you were saying about Jeremy and Elizabeth." Belle stared him in the eye. "I wasn't." "Come on now, don't be coy. Where are they? Are they both sleeping late?" Peter put down his pipe and pushed back from the table. "As I indicated in my correspondence, Jeremy joined the Union Army. You missed him. His unit left already." She realized her eyebrow was twitching. "Bull. I asked at the livery, and they said they weren't shipping a unit until next week. Where is he?" Peter demanded. "He went to the next town. I must say he looks quite handsome in a uniform. All Hepscott, that boy," Belle said. When lying, it was best to keep it short and deflect as soon as possible. Well, both things were true, just not exactly as presented. She shifted in her seat. Peter considered this for a moment. He squinted at Belle. "I don't believe you. You're my blood, but you're still just a painted lady." "Our peace was short-lived." Belle coughed into her napkin. "Peter, I'm sure you don't mean to come into my establishment and call me names, but I will say this, and only once. I own this place, and I can buy and sell you 3 times over, ranch and all, so watch your manners." "I'll hold my tongue." Peter leaned closer. "I hope you're prepared for judgment by the Almighty. You can't hush him up." He drank from his cup and set it down gently. "Where's Elizabeth?" "In Louisville, a shopping trip with some of the ladies." Belle shrugged. "I'm not exactly sure when they'll return." "Damn it, Belle," he said. "How could you send her off with a pack of fallen women? Have you no sense at all? That is my daughter, not yours. She was supposed to see Jeremy off and return. When I send her here, she was supposed to consider her choice in husbands. I insist that she get married." "Meaning what exactly? Did you get a good price for her hand? Because she hasn't mentioned even having a beau." Belle tried to keep steady, but her voice became louder. Peter slammed his hand on the table. "You know what I mean, and marriage is not up to her. I'm her father. She'll do as I say." Belle stood as well. "No matter your opinion, I promised her she could visit the summer, so I suggest you get your skinny ass back in your wagon and go home." Peter lunged and grabbed Belle by the arms. "And I will remind you that I'm her father, and you have no right to meddle." Johnny rushed into the room. "You unhand me this instant." Belle wrestled out of his grip. Peter's neck veins bulged. He grabbed a chair and skidded it across the floor. "Damn it, woman." Johnny grabbed Peter, restraining him while shaking his hand. Hey, Uncle, it's good to see you. Let's just calm down. I will not calm down. I want my daughter now, Peter yelled, pulling back. She's not here, Belle said, moving back to her chair. I came to bring Elizabeth home, and she will not be spending the summer in a whorehouse. Peter stomped his foot. Sheriff Murphy pushed open the front door. Hey, Belle, is everything all right in here? I could hear you from the street. Belle forced a smile. My brother and I have a difference of opinion. She sat and picked up her cup. Peter hissed. I'm sorry to have wasted my time and yours. I expect Elizabeth on a train home to Missouri the minute she gets back to Fitchburg. He grabbed his hat and trudged out. Johnny said, I'll come with you. He followed Peter out the door. Would you care for an Irish coffee, Sheriff? Belle asked. Well, thank you kindly. I think I might ride out a bit first to make sure he keeps out of trouble till he's out of town. He bent his head. Good day, ma'am. Belle tipped more bourbon into her cup and drained it. You can quit hiding. He's gone. Charlie scooted into the room. What a vile man. He is EJ's father and my brother. You might find a kind word to say, Belle sighed. Hepscott men are so passionate and stubborn he can't help himself. You can forgive him just like that? Well, yes, he's not wrong. I dressed his daughter as a boy and sent her to join the army. He should be angry with me. He just doesn't know why yet. Charlie frowned. Well, I hope they'll be safe. It'll take more than hope. Belle slid the bottle to Charlie. You might consider a prayer or two. All right, so let me see how I'm doing on the clock here. I got a few minutes left anyways, I think. So what I've been working on is, well, I always work on a lot of stuff at once. Most of you've met me in person know I have ADD, so multitasking calms my frittering around. I have two books that have ended up at beta readers at the same time. So I've got one that's a young adult story that I hope to send off to Sapphire soon, and I've got the fourth in the Diamond Lake series with the gals with the softball and all that. So the fifth story I had plotted out for a while, and it just seems like it might be coming up short. So I may end up making it a little teeny novelette to go with it or something like that. And another project I've been working on has been writing with a team. It's been a lot of fun, but unfortunately, we can tell you all the fun things about it and some of the not so fun things about trying to work with a team of people. But I hope we have some resolution to that and have something out sooner than later, because it's been fun getting to know those authors, and it really has gone pretty well from that side of things. So anyways, I guess that's about all that I have. We're heading east. As I said, we're going up through Arizona and Utah. If y'all are on the way, you can shoot me a DM sometime. And I love to meet people at a coffee shop somewhere and have a Coke or something. So we'll try and do that. I had originally planned to go up through Michigan to see my dad, and that's kind of, I don't know. We got to pick a way east, but we'll see what our hurry ends up looking like. So. And it was great. I appreciate everybody taking time to come, and all the people watching on video. Hey.
You know, that unmute thing is a pain in the ass.
It really is.
So we're running 15 minutes ahead, and I hope you guys didn't have your friends coming just for your reading, and that's going to be a problem. Is it going to be for anybody who's going to be reading in the next hour or so? Because we could take a little break if you want to. I mean, I'm for going ahead, but
I support that.
okay. So Nance, you're the next reader. You want to?
I am.
Go ahead, introduce yourself.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Nan Sparks, and I write for Bold Strokes Books. Today, I'd like to read from my recent release, Starting Over. Let's see. Hopefully, everybody can see that. And it just came out this past May, and I'd like to read the summary to you. Sam Phillips is going through the motions. She was happily married for 34 years when a car accident stole her wife and destroyed her perfectly planned future. Now it's all she can do to exist day by day. The one thing that keeps her going is her IT administration job at Walsh Software Design. All seems lost when software stability issues threaten her career. That is until a hotshot programmer struts into her world and makes Sam want to feel again. Jennifer Delgado doesn't do cold and snow, but when a fluke February wildfire in the Southwest means evacuating for the third time in 2 years, It's time for a change, and she accepts a contract job in Minnesota. The weather is nothing compared to the unexpected feeling she develops for Sam. Jennifer has no idea if she can mend Sam's broken soul, but it's never too late for starting over. So today I'm going to read the meet cute from the second half of chapter 3. And in this chapter, Sam had just attended a grief group session at her friend Pat's request. It did not go very well at all. Feeling consumed by all the grief in the room, she made it through about half the meeting and bolted. After all, she had her own grief to deal with and didn't need more piled on. On the way out to her truck, she caught a whiff of burger and fries. It'd been a long time since she'd felt like being around people, and because of this, she'd avoided anything social. But on that day, a burger and fries sounded really, really good. Now, I'll start my reading at the moment she enters the bar. Compared to the blinding white snow, the bar was dark, and it took a moment for her eyes to adjust. She heard the distinct clack of a cue ball striking its intended target, followed by the thump as the ball tumbled down into the pocket. The all too familiar sounds weren't as painful as she expected. Oh, sure, the woot of celebration in the back room conjured up memories of Kara beaming because she'd sunk the 8-ball with a tough shot. But so far, she didn't feel the urge to run back to her awaiting truck. She'd consider that progress. The main bar area was surprisingly quiet, especially when compared to the insanity of 5 o'clock on any given Friday. Sam had her choice of bar stools and picked one at the opposite end of the bar from her usual seat next to her wife. Hey, Sam, long time no see. What can I get you? Hey, Steve. Sam was glad he was tending bar. He wasn't much of a talker, and that suited her just fine. He was an 80s throwback, still wearing stonewashed jeans and a Def Leppard concert t-shirt that was 2 sizes too big. She ordered without even looking at the menu. Hey, I'll have a tally burger with cheddar, everything on it, the thick cut fries, ranch on the side, and a Fulton Lonely Blonde. He filled the frosted mug to the brim and slid it down to her, disappeared into the kitchen. So far, so good. She couldn't imagine a better way to ease back into a social life than a quiet Sunday afternoon at Tally's. The beer was so cold that ice crystals were floating on the surface. It was exactly how she liked it. And that first sip hit the spot. Yum. Absolute perfection. The click of high heels on hardwood stopped directly behind her left shoulder. That must be some beer. I'll have to order one and see if it makes me moan like that too. The woman's voice was sultry. Sam froze and squeezed her eyes shut. She hadn't realized she'd moaned into her beer. Grief group shouldn't have ended already. The voice didn't sound familiar, but then she'd only heard 2 of the women at the community center speak. No, the woman behind her sounded too chipper to be from grief group. It'd be rude not to acknowledge her presence. Besides, there was something about her voice that sounded teasing and playful. Curiosity got the better of Sam, and she twisted in her seat. One quick glance, and she couldn't look away. The stranger was captivating, a petite woman with a deep brown complexion complemented by a cascading mane of wavy, dark brown hair. Her smiling eyes were light brown, with flecks of darker brown, or so it seemed in the dim bar light. She looked like an elegant ray of sunshine, and for reasons Sam couldn't explain, she had the urge to bask in the warmth of those rays. She always thought that some people had a knack for taking the ordinary and wearing it extraordinarily. The way certain pieces were combined said a lot about the person wearing them. Sam had a closet full of tailored suits and had always admired fashion. Not so much the over-the-top runway stuff, but rather fashion that showed off a sense of classic elegance. And the woman standing next to her was first-class feminine fashion personified. Tasteful, high-heeled brown leather boots were detailed with 3 leather straps that wrapped around the ankle and buckled on the side. They showed off beneath form-hugging dark blue jeans. A delicate cream-colored blouse peeked out from beneath a double-breasted 6-button navy wool blazer. Sparkling gold earrings and a necklace completed the outfit. She looked as if she'd stepped right out of a Saks Fifth Avenue catalog. Her clothing consisted of simple, timeless pieces, but the way she combined them screamed elegance. She carried herself with calm confidence and a dazzling smile. She walked up to the stool around the corner from Sam's and tapped the backrest with her finger. Excuse me. Do you mind if I sit here? I've had about all I can take of eating alone. It's lonely and depressing. Eating alone was absolutely lonely and depressing. Sam wanted to ask the stranger why she was lonely, but she didn't want questions in return, so she simply replied, I don't mind at all. Chair's yours. And she realized that for once, she didn't really mind. Not at all. Thank you. The stranger smiled back and hopped up on the bar stool. Is it always this cold here in April? I thought it'd be warmer. Sam chuckled. She definitely wasn't from around here. April's known for extremes. Next week it could be 70. You never know. We're halfway to May. It'll warm up at some point. Well, that's welcome news. I'd take 70s over this bitter cold any day. Ooh, it'll be July before I thaw out. Hey, what can I get you? Steve asked, walking out of the kitchen. I'd like exactly what she's having. Steve raised an eyebrow, looked at Sam, and then back at the stranger. You want a 3rd-pound tally burger with cheddar, everything on it, thick cut fries, ranch on the side, and a lonely blonde? The stranger turned to Sam with a smirk on her face. Tell me, was it the lonely blonde that made you moan? Sam felt the heat rise in her cheeks and knew her face had turned beet red. She was grateful when Steve started talking. That's Minnesota's finest. It's a blonde ale made with German hops and American malt. It's one of our most popular on tap. The entire order sounds splendid. Thank you. Sam tapped her finger on the bar. Steve, I have a 10 that says she can't eat half. Oh, you're on, Steve smacked the counter, because I think she's going to take you down. And I can always use some extra cash. Hey, you still have to tip like regular, too. He filled a frosted mug and set it in front of the captivating stranger before disappearing back into the kitchen. Haven't you heard the saying that great things come in small packages? There was that smirk again. It goes for appetites, too. She took a sip of the beer and let out an exaggerated moan. Oh, now I get it. I never knew how much I'd enjoy savoring a lonely blonde. She set her beer on the cardboard coaster and offered her hand. Hi, I'm Jennifer. It felt good to joke around, and Jennifer seemed like a great sparring partner. Hi, I'm Sam. Jennifer's hands were soft and her nails were perfectly manicured. She slid off her stool and walked to the dartboard. Jennifer picked up 2 sets of darts and held one out. Are you up for a game of 301 while we wait for our food? Sam sighed. The last few minutes of visiting with this beautiful woman had been light and fun. But a game would inevitably lead to icebreaker questions. So, do you live close by? What do you do for a living? Are you married? What's your spouse do? And boom, the fun would be over. The pitiful looks would come out to play, followed up with a litany of questions about how she was holding up and adjusting to be alone. She wasn't adjusting, and she didn't want to talk about it. Not at grief group, and not at lunch. Sam shook her head. Nah, thanks. She stared into her beer. This is exactly why she'd been avoiding Friday happy hours. Oh, come on. I'll give you a chance to win back the $10 you just wasted betting against my appetite. Jennifer shook the dart cup. Her friend Pat's voice boomed in her head. Sam, it's like we lost both of you in that car accident. She shook her head, knowing that nothing would change if she didn't start doing something different. Who better than to practice on than a stranger she'd likely never see again? Sam sighed. Yeah, okay, why not? She spun her stool and stood. Are we doubling in or playing straight in? Let's play straight in. Otherwise, my food will be ice cold by the time I hit a double and can start deducting points. Fair enough. You go first. Sam stood back and watched Jennifer throw her darts. She hit a double 20 on the first throw, a 19, and finally a 5. The electronic dartboard deducted the 64 points from her starting score. Your food will be cold by the time you hit a double. Somehow I think I'm going to be out $20 before I even pay for my lunch. Sam stepped up to the line. She took aim and threw. The dart struck the metal divider between the 1 and the 18 and then ricocheted across the floor. Smooth, real smooth. Heat flushed her cheeks and she shook her head. Jennifer ran and retrieved the dart, handed it back to her. I consider that a practice shot. Oh, no, I intend to win on the up and up. Sam took aim, threw her second dart, and struck a triple 13. She did a little fist bump. So it's going to be like that, Jennifer laughed. Just my luck. I asked the dart shark to play. Sam's third dart deducted another 18. She wasn't too far behind. The score went back and forth until Jennifer finally nailed the 6 that she needed to win. The game had been fun. There hadn't been a litany of probing questions, just easy, enjoyable banter. Sam put the darts back into the cup just as Steve arrived with their food. She ordered another beer for each of them, and they continued chatting while they ate. Their conversation was light and effortless. Before Sam knew it, she was stuffed. More than half of her burger sat on her plate, and she'd barely dented her pile of fries. Her appetite just wasn't what it used to be. Jennifer, however, had cleared every morsel. Sam pushed one $10 bill to Steve and another to Jennifer. It didn't matter. The laughter was worth the extra $20. Sam couldn't remember the last time she laughed and joked around, at least not since losing her wife. It dawned on her that just for a few hours, she hadn't been consumed by grief. She enjoyed the tiniest taste of what it felt to feel alive again. For the first time in a long time, she wanted more of that feeling. She let the fun of those few hours keep her company on her long drive home. The end. And yes, I did purchase a 6-pack of Fulton Lonely Blonde as research. And yes, this is the last one. Again, my reading is from my May release, Starting Over.
That's great. Thank you so much, Nance. I love I love readings that have props. You know, they really have a tendency to give dimensionality to it. Well, since I'm sorry.
I said I'll paste my link for the book in the chat.
Okay, I see that. Great. Since we have some time, does anybody have any questions for Nance or for McGee, who read before her? I have one for McGee. Okay. So McGee, do you prefer writing historical fiction over contemporary?
Well, it turns out what I consider contemporary fiction was historical because it was in the 80s, but that kind of chuffs me a little, truth be told. Family history is my hobby, and so I take a lot of interest in history from that perspective. I was bored to tears with history all through school, so I have to look up a lot of stuff when I'm working on it. It's a lot of work to write historical, but I find myself looking up just as much for contemporary. So I would have to say I do like writing historical stuff. I think contemporary, it's hard to keep your pulse there, and everything shifts so quickly. You know, you put in a reference for Twitter and it's gone in 6 months. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of dealing with that. And my young adult one is set in current times. I'm not sure how well it's gonna. It may even be too out of date by the time I go to publish the thing. I don't know, but I do like historical books. I don't know. I don't write because I have an audience I'm targeting to or any kind of thing. So I don't. I just write what I like to read. So and if it strikes somebody that makes me happy, you know, I can find my people that way. But you know, I'm not trying to hit the, you know, New York best time seller. I just tell my stories that pop in my head. So
I think that's how the best writers work. You know, because,
well, I hope to be a good writer someday. So I appreciate that encouragement.
You're already a great writer, McGee.
Yeah, I agree. That's true. And you know, nothing that we write is ever going to get on the New York Times bestseller list. And not because we're not good writers, but because, you know, we're either self-published or published by small presses. We don't have access to those sorts of reviewers that are going to push it out. And one of the things that I noticed, because my wife and I were having dinner one night with a heterosexual couple. She works with the wife, and her volunteer job was that we're not really on the radars of straight people. You know, our community and our issues, you know, they might be supporters, but they're really not that interested in what goes on in our lives. We're not even, it doesn't even occur to them. So they're not going to read our books in huge volumes. It's just not going to happen. But
I have caught myself that when I first had published my self-pub stuff, and people would, my wife would introduce us and say, "Oh, she's a writer, blah blah blah," and people, "Oh, what's your book?" And I would start stumbling with, "Well, I don't know if you'd want to read it," and blah blah blah. And then after a little while, I told myself, "You know what? I've read a lot of straight crap. I can read their damn romance. They can read mine too, for the love of God." So I try really not to say that, and I just it's like when I walked the kids into Walmart when they were babies, and the greeter would say, "Which one of you is the mom?" I didn't want to have that conversation in the middle of Walmart, but I would say, "We both are." So I just sucked up my big girl panties and I say, "This is my book. It's a lesfic romance. It's set here." And I'm like, they can like it or not. So, but it does give you a little heartburn the first few dozen times you say it. And then after a while, you're like, and then you say you don't care, and then somebody gets shot in their own store in California, and all of a sudden again you're like, "I'm not putting the flag up by the RV tonight." My wife's like, "Yeah, it's probably a good idea." So, and I hate that, but pendulums swing both ways, and this too shall pass. And our kids are terrific, and they're voters, and they're making their friends vote, and either we're going to move to Canada in a couple of years, or we'll be able to stay. I don't know yet. So, Nance, what are you working on?
I am I'm doing final edits on Appalachian Awakening, which comes out in January, and then I'm working on a proposal for my 6th book, which is murder mystery set up in the Turtle Flambeau Flowage up in eastern Wisconsin, right on the border with Michigan's Upper Peninsula. And it's such a remote, perfect area. My wife and I took a trip up there and explored the area, and it is just a perfect, desolate spot for a creepy murder mystery. So I'm getting that all laid out and getting the plot set up, and it ought to be fun. There will be a snapping turtle involved that pulls an arm back underwater, and everybody goes, "I'm not the only one that saw that, right?"
John, I saw you unmuting yourself. Were you going to ask a question or make a comment?
I was going to make a comment, if I may, just in case anybody ever asks. It takes 6.5 hours to read one of Elena's books straight through. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it does. And the occasion of it was when I had to take Catherine to the ER last fall, and that's the time it took. So passes the time pretty quickly, actually.
Hopefully the ER result was a good outcome, and
it turned into emergency gallbladder surgery.
Oh.
And she had the hiatal hernia surgery just 2 weeks before, so they reused 2 or 3 of the incisions from the previous operation, and she's perfectly fine. Only rather than little straight marks, she's got little crosses in some cases. But it all worked out. It all worked out wonderfully.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, does anybody have any more questions for McGee or for Nance? We could. The only concern I'm having about the time is, somebody's coming in.
Yep, I got it.
And I don't want to get so far ahead that the other readers don't have time to get in here. So that's my thinking on sort of the delay tactic, if you will. And so Vicky, I see you just came in. Would you mute yourself, because we're getting feedback? Thank you. Okay, so let's move on then. Our next reader is Annette Mori, who's published lots of books and has actually been in a kind of a writing contest with some of the other readers here today. I know she's been, in a contest with McGee. I've written 5,000 words today. No, I've written 7,500 words. And I'm watching these guys and I'm thinking, what? How can you write so fast?
I'm
But
happy if I
anyway,
get 16 in.
Well, it's
Only
easy.
in
We're
spurts.
making it all up. So, you know, when
Yeah,
you're making it all up, it goes fast.
that's the
And
great
it's
thing
only in
about
spurts.
fiction.
There's a lot of times when I'm not writing anything for many months. So
All
spurts.
right. Well, you have the floor. Take it away.
All right. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna read from my latest release, Love Bonds, which is actually the third novel in my San Diego trilogy. And a little background on this trilogy. So I wrote my second book that I ever wrote was called Asset Management, and to this day it's my highest selling book. It's romantic intrigue, spy, badass women, and has been the most popular. And when I started writing, I thought to myself, I don't want to be pigeonholed into any genre. So I write in all kinds of genres, and sometimes people go, I don't know what's going to come out of your mouth or your head, because I just do really different stuff. And Allie said to me, I know this was a while ago, she said, you know what? Your lane is romantic intrigue. And she's probably right, but it's not my favorite to write in. Actually, I like the unusual ones better because I just think they're more fun to write. But she's probably right that it is more my lane. So when I first started, I said, I'm not going to do series. I'm not going to be pigeonholed, yada, yada, yada. Well, that quickly went out the window when lots of people said, we want a sequel. We want a sequel to Asset Management. So I said, okay, I'll do a sequel only if Erin O'Reilly writes it with me, thinking, no way was she going to write with me, right? I'm like this brand new author. She's like, written all these different books. And she said, sure, I'll write it with you. I'm like, shit. So we wrote the book, The Organization. And the reason why I'm giving you this background is because one of the main characters in The Organization is Val. And she's a very, very complicated character. And she's become probably one of my favorite characters to write because she's just so complicated. So the scene that I'm going to read, and the reason why I titled the book Love Bonds, is because there's family. It's this romantic intrigue, but at the center of it, there's this whole notion of family. And for anybody who's followed Val's character, she's the organization's assassin. People think she has no morals, no conscience, no, she's precision fighter. She's a precision person to do what needs to be done. And at times it gets called a psycho because she's just like that. Well, in The Organization, she meets a woman who ends up becoming her wife. And while it doesn't completely change her behavior or her personality, she's still badass and she's still their assassin. It softens her, and she has a child. And so this scene that I'm going to read centers around her daughter, who's 5 years old and very precocious, and the grandmother, who is her mother, who she doesn't know is alive until later. I'm giving a little bit of the book away, so don't tell anybody. But so here we go. Here's the scene with Pepper, and who is her daughter, and Val, who is this very complicated character, her wife Gina, and some others. Pepper was chattering away, showing Sasha her phone and all the apps she had on it. Could Sasha actually borrow her granddaughter's phone without anyone knowing? Val watched from a short distance, never taking her eyes from Sasha or her daughter. Eventually, Val encouraged the foursome to return to the house. Val made promises to Pepper that they'd go back to Disneyland soon, but not today or tomorrow, and only if she was a good girl. The youngster was such a bright little thing, just like Val and Mila at that age. She was beyond thrilled to learn that she was a grandmother and couldn't wait to do all the things that grandmothers did with their grandchildren. Val put a protective arm around Sasha as she led her back to the house. After Gina ushered Pepper inside, Sasha noticed Pepper rub her eyes. Someone needs a nap, Gina said. She turned to Val and explained, we didn't get much sleep on the plane. Pepper was too excited to see her Mama V and Minnie Mouse. Which room should I take her to? Seeing her chance, Sasha piped up. I can put her to bed. Gina and Val shared a look. I think that sounds like a wonderful idea, Gina said. Val frowned, but she seemed to relent. I get a story. Grandma has to read me a story before I fall asleep. That's the rule, Pepper declared. Are you sure you're up for this? Gina asked. Pepper is a master charmer. She'll have you read an entire library of books. Good thing I didn't bring more than one large suitcase. Gina winked. I'm pretty good at reading bedtime stories, Sasha said. Pepper stamped her foot. It's not bedtime. No, but it's nap time, and I can tell you desperately need one today. No more stamping your feet, please, Gina gently corrected. But I'm a big girl now. I don't need naps anymore. You do when you haven't had any sleep because of our big adventure. Even Mama G needs a nap today. Okay, Mama G, Pepper grabbed Sasha's hand. Come on, Grandma, it's nap time. Do you know where you're going? Gina raised her eyebrow. We can go into the room I slept in last night, Sasha offered. I'll grab a few books from my bag. You only need 2, no more, Gina warned as she focused her mom gaze on Pepper. Pepper loudly sighed. Okay, fine, Attila the mom. Sasha had to stifle a laugh because clearly Val did not find the comment a bit funny. Val raised her eyebrow. Pepper, that's not very nice. Apologize to your mother. Sorry, Pepper looked down and shuffled her feet on the floor. Where did she get that from? Val asked. You'd be surprised what kids pick up these days. Kindergarten, I presume, Gina answered. Maybe we should homeschool her, Val suggested. Gina shook her head, covered her daughter's ears, and whispered, No, we are not doing that. It's bad enough she's in an unconventional living arrangement, and I hold my breath every day wondering when she'll tell her teacher she lives in a hole like a hobbit. The authorities would have to find a door to knock on, Val teased. It was the first time Sasha had seen the more lighthearted version of her daughter. Sasha wondered about the odd comments. A hole? Not being able to find a door to knock on? Were Val and her family still in danger? Did she bring this chaos and peril to her family's doorstep? She'd have to ask Val more about that. For now, the priority was reaching out to Mila. Gina brought 2 books for Sasha to read to Pepper and then asked, You okay in here? Val hovered in the doorway, looking hesitant. We're perfect, aren't we, Pepper? Yeah, stop being a helicopter mom, Pepper said. Val narrowed her eyes and shot Pepper a warning look. That's it. When we get back home, we're looking into private schools for Pepper. She is in a private school, Gina answered. Oh, then I want to meet every one of her friends, Val insisted. You will do no such thing. Cover Pepper's ears again, Sasha, Gina directed. Sasha smiled at her daughter and wife and placed her hands on Pepper's ears. They're all potty trained and you'll have them pissing in their drawers. Sasha couldn't help but laugh. Pepper was squirming on the bed, trying to pull Sasha's hand from her ears. I want to know what you're laughing about. Something for adult ears only, Gina responded. Why is it funny that my friends will pee their panties? Gina sighed. Never mind that. Just let Grandma read you a story. Gina tugged on Val's hand, and finally, Sasha was alone with her granddaughter. After she'd read nearly 2 stories from cover to cover, she noticed the even breathing from her granddaughter, who'd fallen asleep. Before tucking her in, she removed her phone and laid it on the dresser. Sasha slipped from the bed and quietly stepped into the adjoining bathroom to make her call. Mila, are you safe? Mom, where are you? Dad and I have been frantic. Mila's voice sounded like she was in a state of panic. I'm fine. I have so much to tell you, but I can't just yet. I had to make sure you and your father were safe and okay. No one has tried to. No, Mealy interrupted. But are you sure you're safe where you're at? I am. Everything's going to be okay. Better than okay. I've got to go. I'm not supposed to make contact. It's too risky. Wait, when will we see you ourselves that you're not hurt or anything? Mila pleaded. Soon. Bye, my Malishka. Sasha ended the call just in time as she heard rustling outside the door and quickly flushed the toilet. She pushed the phone into her pocket and exited the bathroom. Val had entered the bedroom and placing her finger over her mouth, she mouthed, "Would you follow her?" She would follow her to the other room. When Val turned to leave, Sasha set the phone back on the dresser. Okay, that's from Love Bonds, the third in the trilogy. And also, I wrote another trilogy. I just can't get enough with these characters. And so I wrote a trilogy that's coming out next year called The Next Generation. And Pepper's all grown up, and she is the star in the first book of the series, the trilogy called The Next Generation. They decide they want to join the family business of badass spies, heroes, heroines, whatever. Did I eat up a good amount of time there? Hopefully.
You did. You did great. Thank you so much for that reading. Anybody have any questions for Annette?
I do, only because I know you enough to know that you're a pantser. How in the world do you keep up with something that is becoming multiple books in a series with all those? Do you like make notes as you go, or what's your process like?
Oh, painfully no. No, painfully no. In fact, I'm so horrible at it that I have to go back and reread and try to remember even what color eyes the characters are, because I can't remember. And then what happens is I probably spend twice as much time cleaning up stuff and plugging plot holes and correcting all of my mistakes because I can't keep shit straight. It makes it that much more painful for me, but I just can't write any other way. Sometimes when it gets so bad, though, I will start to like jot notes, like even how many people are going to be on the attack team. I can't remember who I've assigned to that, when they go into places and they attack. So I have to write down all their names and try to not forget who's on that team that's going on this particular mission, or who Shar, who's the leader of the organization, sends on missions. Sometimes I'll get those names mixed up and I'll have to correct all that. So I spend a lot of time correcting those things. And oh, well, as even after all the time, because the process for Affinity is pretty robust. So I'll do my first draft, I'll read over it and listen to it at the same time, at least 5 different times. That's minimum before I even send the rough draft into Affinity. Then Affinity has a beta editor who reads over it, finds errors, gives me feedback. Then it goes to the copy editor. She does her thing. Then it goes to the proof editor. And then even after that, at each of those stages, even after those editors do their thing, I'll go over it 5 more times. So it's serious OCD on my part, and we try to catch everything. But even then, the proof editor, McGee, has been my proof editor for the trilogy, and she'll probably be the proof editor for the next trilogy. So you'll really know those, and it's good that you are the editor for all, because you know all the characters. You'll know when I screw up and can't remember XYZ, and you'll go, wasn't da in that last book? And so yeah, it's hard. But on a positive note, and I'm sure other pansters out there will say this, one of the nice things about being a panster is because I don't know where the story's going to go. They can make great twist and turn stories, or who's the bad guy. I don't know. I honestly don't know until I write it. And so I leave myself 3 or 4 different avenues, and I'll do shadowing for those. And then people don't figure it out until the end, sometimes because I don't know.
And that maybe you can explain to people who are not authors what a pantser is.
Like second shout out for pantsters. I'm all in.
Okay, so there's two different writers. There's either plotters or pantsters. A plotter is somebody who writes an outline, they plots everything out, they know exactly where their story is going to go. They probably have character sketches. They probably even outline each scene. A pantster is someone who writes by the seat of their pants. They just go. They have an idea and they run with it. That's exactly what I do. Is I'll have a dream or I'll have an idea, just a kernel, and I won't really even know exactly where it's heading before I just start writing. And sometimes I will paint myself into a corner and I'll have to like go to people like my buddy Allie Spooner and say, I painted myself into a corner, I don't know how to get out of it. Or there's a timeline issue and I don't know how to fix this timeline issue. And other people will help me brainstorm ways to get out of the corner that I paint myself into often.
How about the other authors we've heard today? Are you plotters or pantsters?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah.
I'm going to say a plantster. I have a rough idea, but I write from the seat of my pants. So I would say plantster.
I'm definitely a pantster. It never ends up where I want it to end up. Yeah, so many twists and turns. So, yeah.
I'm a pantser with a roadmap. I'm a big save the cat's beat sheet person that likes to go from one beat to the next. So I know where I'm going to. I just have no idea how I'm going to get there, but I know what beat I'm going to next.
Yeah, I was a pantser at first. I took some classes on plotting, and after I threw away the 6th or 7th chapter that made no sense after I wrote the next chapter, so I did discover some software. I do like Scrivener, and then I can put in my note cards of kind of what I think is going to happen, and when it goes into the ditch, I can go back and rearrange the cards that fit what I actually wrote. And my first book, I actually went after I wrote it and made a Excel spreadsheet for each chapter, who the POV was, what was this, and then I could look at it and go, well, crap, this timeline's all jacked, and then I could go back and that's a lot of work in Word, so being able to just flick those files around is much better. So
the only planning that I ever do is at least when I start a scene, I know whose POV it is in, and I try to stick to that POV, and that's about it.
So now you have to explain what a POV is.
is
Oh, point of view. Yeah. So yeah, because if you keep going back and forth between different points of view in a particular scene, it gets confusing for people. And that's what's called head hopping. And that's kind of a big no-no. So some people stick even to one point of view throughout the whole book. Some people will do point of view back and forth by chapters. I think it's okay to have one scene, to change scenes to a new POV or to a new point of view, because I think people can follow. They can follow scenes. They can follow chapters. You can be in different headspaces, but you just have to have some kind of signal that you're going to the next point of view. And I try to, in the very beginning of that scene, indicate right away whose point of view it is.
Some of the world's greatest novels are written from multiple point of view, like War and Peace. And yeah. I don't know how it recently became a no-no not to head hop. I think it's because some writers don't do it skillfully.
Yeah. In the same paragraph, or even in this, one paragraph after another, I do think it gets confusing as a reader. And so I understand why you don't want to do too much of that. But yeah, I do it all the time. I have multiple points of view. Sometimes I have books that have one point of view, but more often than not, I'll have books that have several points of view.
As a
So
reader, I sometimes like it when I have to guess for a while whose head I'm in.
Yeah,
But um, it should become clear after a while.
right, right.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's why I try. I probably don't always hit the nail on the head, but I try very hard to indicate whose point of view it is right away, so that isn't confusing to people.
You know, it's interesting because I've been writing in the third person for the Hobbes series, which is my contemporary series. And I am now going back to write another book in my historical series, which has been written in the first person, usually from at least 2 points of view, although I've written solely from one point of view. And it's really strange to be in first person again, after being able to go into this character's head and that character's head, and to remember, no, you don't know that because that person is thinking that. You know?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it is. I think first person, that's my first love, actually. Not all of my books are in first person, but probably the books that, except for the series, this romantic intrigue series, which I don't think would work well in first person, but books like Locked Inside or Sculpting Her Heart, you can really get the emotion of the person when you're writing in first person that I don't think you can get as you can, but not really. I think you can really get deep into a person's character when you write in first person. So that's kind of my first love, but I do write in third person as well, because I think, some people really hate first person.
Yeah, I don't get that. Do you?
I don't get it either. I enjoy reading first person books.
I do too. And I think I agree. I think the richness of the emotionality is a huge asset to an author in writing in first person. But it does take getting used to again, because it was really a hard transition for me to go from first person to third person, which seems to be kind of the standard, I think, for contemporary novels. But
it's kind of like shifting gears. I'm with you, because my release that's coming out in January is first person past tense, and the one I'm working on now is third person, and just getting out of that headspace and going back to third person deep versus first person is, it's a challenge to shift gears.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Annette?
So Annette, I know that you collaborate with Allie quite often. Is she a pantser or a plotter? And if she's a plotter, how does that work? Because I tried to co-write a book with a plotter, and it was a disaster. We're still friends, but it was a disaster.
No, thankfully, Allie is a pantster with me. We both are pantsters, and we've really found probably the easiest way to write is we'll take a character, and I actually forced her to write her first book in first person. So we each took a character and wrote every other chapter, and so it was kind of easy to work through that, because I would go in a direction and then she would follow that, and then she would write a chapter and that would lead us somewhere else, and I would kind of go with that. So us both sort of being pantsters, we talked in the beginning about just our overall vision for the book when we did our first book back and forth, because the actual first book that we actually wrote together was 2 novellas that brought characters that had overlapping characters. So they were separate stories. So that worked really well, where we could just bring the 2 books together, basically. So then the next time that we wrote together, it was this back and forth thing. And what was really nice about that is that we're both pantsters, and we could just go with the flow, which is what we did, knowing that our overall vision was here. We talked about what our overall vision was. We wanted a love story. We wanted an age gap love story between these 2. And we kind of knew one of the characters was a character that was in the second book that I wrote in the series. And the other one was kind of a new character that Allie sort of developed. So we sort of just knew in general where we wanted the love story to go in general, and then just went with it. And then because those characters, we came to really get to know them. The fourth book in the series that we also did the same thing, where we went back and forth chapter to chapter, but then we did a third person. We just knew those characters really well, and it just worked. We just kind of, in general, knew what we wanted to do and went for it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Allie and I really write well together. We're both so competitive. So that's where that sort of, I'd write a chapter and then send it to her. And God, that woman she writes fast. Before I even knew it, before even 8 hours passed, she'd have the chapter back to me and the next chapter. And I was like, God. So I'd have to write, we wrote it in I don't know, it was some god awful short amount of time, like maybe 30 days or less. It was unbelievable how quick we wrote it.
That's great. So any more questions for Annette? Okay, well, I'm the next reader. My name is Elena Graf. That's my pen name, actually. I've written 14 novels, 10 in the contemporary Hobbes series that we were just talking about, and 4 in my historical series. This book that I'm going to write from has been very personal to me. I have been wanting to write a novel about a school shooting since I started writing this series. I kept putting it off because I just didn't feel ready to do it. Usually when I write a book, I do a lot of research because I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. This book, I didn't research at all. I'll be honest about that. The reason I didn't is I was basically writing my experience of the Sandy Hook shooting. I lived in Newtown for 22 years, and we still had the house in Newtown. We had just bought the house in Maine when this shooting had occurred, but we hadn't closed or moved to Maine yet. So I was there working in my home office that day when the shooting happened 4 miles away from my house. Excuse me. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read from this book. I might have to read something else. In fact, I looked at something to read and I couldn't get through it without getting all upset. So, but anyway, this is the book. It's called Extended Capacity. Is it backwards? Of course it is. But is it backwards? Can you read the title? It works for Nance. It's okay. Okay, good. All right, so the title, Extended Capacity, refers to the magazines that are in a pistol. And I chose that over High Capacity, which are the big magazines that are used in an assault rifle. And the reason is Extended Capacity had a double meaning. It was also how the individuals in the story, and every single character in this 10-volume Hobbes series has a role to play in the story, how it affected them and how much they had to stretch to adjust to this new strange reality of this horror that had happened to their town. So the caretakers really have to work hard to take care of all the individuals who are involved in it. And there's enough horror to go around that everyone has an important job to do. So I'm going to read from the point where the shooting is going to happen. 10:02 a.m. Courtney closed her door, although the administrative assistants were all on break, except for their newest hire. It was probably better that fewer eyes witnessed the meeting. Susan's project had been a covert mission from the start. Courtney had asked her to find a subtle way to mentor 2 new teachers. So far, neither had caught on, but their classroom management had shown a noticeable improvement. After much wrangling, the school board had agreed to give Susan an extra duty bonus for her efforts. Her gratitude for $400 seemed a little over the top, but Courtney understood. When she'd first come to Hobbs and her ex-husband was behind on his child support payments, she'd struggled too. They reviewed the progress of the new teachers before moving on to a more complicated topic, expanding the mentorship program to include some of the old timers. Positioning the arrangement in a way that wouldn't offend anyone was tricky, especially because both Courtney and Susan were new to the district. Courtney glanced at the clock over the door. We have a few minutes. Want to go down to the faculty lounge and see what the others are up to? Yes, let's, said Susan, gathering her papers. Courtney heard a sharp crack. What's that? She asked in a loud whisper. Sounded like a gun. I thought hunting season ended in November. Could be kids shooting in the old sandpit. No, it was closer than that, said Susan, glancing anxiously at the door. Another sharp crack sounded, then another, followed by a long stream. The moment they'd all feared had come. She ran into the open office and snatched up the microphone from the admin's desk. Lockdown, lockdown, active shooter in the school. All teachers return to your classrooms and lock your doors. This is not a drill. She turned to Susan, whose face was gray. I need to get back to my class. My boys are in gym and the girls have health. Let those teachers handle it. You stay here, said Courtney. The young admin was visibly shaking. Lock the door, Courtney ordered. She had to say it twice before the young woman got up and fiddled with the lock. Courtney suddenly remembered that the administrative office was still on the list to be reinforced, hardened as they called it in military terms. Both of you, come into my office. We'll be safer in there. 10:07 a.m. Sam had spent enough time at the range with Liz to recognize the sound of gunfire. She slammed shut the door of her truck and ran back to the school. As she turned the corner, she saw the door swinging in the wind. My God, she murmured under her breath as more shots sounded. She whipped out her phone, but her hands were shaking and it took 2 tries to pull up the keypad to dial 911. Her head swam as she waited for the operator to answer. Finally, a female voice came on the line. Please state your name and the address you're calling from. This is Sam McKinnon. I'm at Hobbs Elementary. Someone is shooting inside. She tried to answer the dispatcher's questions while hurrying to the open door. She cautiously peered down the dark hallway. Please, Sam begged. Please, just tell them to come. Yes, Miss McKinnon. Please be calm. The chief is being informed. Officers will be on the way soon. How many shots did you hear? How the hell should I know? Please just come now. Against her better judgment, Sam went down the short corridor. She tried the door and found it locked from inside. Brenda leaned on the lectern while Officer Meehan struggled to get out his question. She admired him for getting over a childhood stutter, but sometimes it tried her patience. She couldn't understand why a simple change to the permitting process was drawing so many questions. She looked over her shoulder and reread the wording projected on the whiteboard. The door flew open. Chief, active shooter at Hobbs Elementary. The dispatch supervisor's eyes were wide. All faces turned in her direction, then back to Brenda, whose mind suddenly went blank. She tried to remember which officers she'd assigned to the active shooter response squad. Fortunately, they identified themselves by jumping to their feet. That woke her up, and she did a mental review of the patrol schedule. Most of her officers were in that room for the weekly meeting. Only 2 cars were out on the road. Dispatch would have already called them to the scene. She just hoped that the trained team got there before they did. One of those patrol officers was a rookie. Make sure you wear your protective gear, Brenda called after the officers leaving the room. Second squad, head out to direct traffic. Third squad, block the roads to the school. The room emptied quickly as the officers headed to their assigned locations. On the way to the parking lot, Brenda called the number of the state police commander. We're heading down there, he assured her. Your dispatcher already called. I can't believe it, said Brenda, getting into her squad car. How can it happen here? It's our turn, he said with a sigh. The workshop lights flashed. I'm not reading the timestamp, so I apologize. 10:13 a.m. The workshop lights flashed. Focused as she was on making an incredibly precise cut, Liz didn't notice at first. She pushed the wood through the blade and turned off the motor. The relay that flashed the lights when Liz had a phone call had been Sam's suggestion, but now Liz had to figure out where she left her phone. She patted her workshop apron and found it in the usual pocket. The call had already gone into voicemail, but Brenda had left a message. There's an active shooter at the elementary school. Heading down there now. We could use your help. Liz stripped off her shop apron. Without even bothering to brush off the sawdust, she turned off the shop lights and slammed the door behind her. Her knee was a little stiff this morning, but she sprinted up the path to the house. She paused for a moment to think about what to bring. Obviously, she might need her medical bag, but the emergency surgical kit would be helpful too. The first aid kit on the wall of the garage was full of bandages. She was glad to have it during the big fire at Cliff Manor that had almost canceled her wedding. For the second time in less than a year, she yanked the metal box off the wall. She looked over her shoulder to back out of the garage and noticed the tactical bag she packed for her afternoon target practice. It held 2 of her favorite pistols and plenty of 9mm and .380 target ammunition. Both guns were loaded with hollow points in their extended capacity magazines. Why am I even thinking about defense ammunition, she wondered. I'm going to the scene as a doctor. While Olivia hammered on about the estimates, Lucy noticed a green bubble floating across her phone screen. When she saw it was from Liz, she leaned forward to read it. Active shooter at Hobbs Elementary, heading there now. Excuse me, Olivia, said Lucy. The woman gave her a filthy look. She never hesitated to interrupt others, but when she was talking, she expected respectful attention. You and everyone here need to know this, said Lucy with a firm look. There's an active shooter at the elementary school. There was a collective gasp around the table. Olivia jumped to her feet. I need to go, she said. She threw her papers into her bag and hurried out. Obviously, this meeting is adjourned, said Lucy. Abby, can you discuss with the senior members of the vestry how we can help in this situation? Absolutely, Mother Lucy, but where are you going? To the school. Once the news gets out, there will be frantic parents needing trained people to keep them calm. The meeting door opened and Jody stuck her head inside. Mother Lucy, there's a shooter at the elementary school. Thank you, Jody. We know. Please call Mother Reshma back from her home visit. She'll be needed here. Lucy heard herself giving orders like a pro. A few years ago, she would have suggested they all pray, but the situation called for action, not spiritual guidance. She wished Tom were here. Jody, please call Father Simmons in Florida and tell him what's happening. Lucy glanced around at all the worried faces. Maybe she was wrong. Prayer was exactly what they needed. Please join me in praying for the safety of our children, the teachers and staff at the school, and all our first responders. They all bowed their heads. I'm going to end it there because I think that's about 10 minutes. And that's from this book, Extended Capacity. Whew, I got
Take a deep breath.
Yeah. Well, to me, that's a very fast moving kind of, it's shifting from scene to scene, from one situation and one character to another. It sort of has that kind of,
Well, it was so powerful. I mean, it was just like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is how it must have been very painful to write.
The description of the actual shooting was less painful to write than the aftermath, because I myself wasn't present at the shooting, but I was very much there for how the town reacted. And I can remember I was working at home because I was working remotely for a company out of Albany, New York, and I was living in Newtown. And we had 5 elementary schools in Newtown, and our neighbors' kids didn't go to that Sandy Hook school. They went to the Hedda Meadow School, which was closer. And I saw them coming home from school, they're all following all the stuff going on CNN, and people from the office are messaging me what's going on, and trying to answer questions. I saw these kids walking home, and I was never so happy to see those kids walking home.
Mm-hmm.
I really applaud you for writing this book. I certainly hope that many women read it.
I think well, first of all, it's not really lesfic. There are no romances. There are lots of, all the women are in established relationships.
Well, lesbian fiction shouldn't have to have a love story as a central part of the plot.
It's not romance, but it's certainly lesbian fiction.
Yeah,
certainly fiction. I mean, well, it's maybe nonfiction, but it's it's in the genre.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's also a gay man. There's a trans woman in this book, so it kind of has a broad cast of characters. But the primary relationships of the characters most of them are lesbians. Mm-hmm. And but it's interesting because I think we train readers to expect romances in our books somehow, and I think this one, talking about writing, as you were, McGee, writing what you have to write. I had to write this book. I absolutely had to write it. I had something to say about guns in it. I'm a gun owner. I carry a concealed weapon every day. And I was trained by my dad to shoot and also to respect guns. I was a member of the NRA. I quit about the same time as George H.W. Bush did back in the 90s, when the NRA started to lose its mind and become nothing but a Second Amendment rights organization. But after the Newtown shooting, I had to rethink everything I thought about guns and everything I felt about guns. And I had never even owned a handgun until I myself was surprised by one of the guys coming up in a truck with flags flying. This is all the stuff's in the book, actually. And I was just going to the supermarket to get something for lunch. And I saw the guy. I was making a left turn. He was sitting over in the other lane. I just looked at him. I didn't flip him the bird. I didn't give him a dirty look. I didn't say anything. And he followed me right to the door of the supermarket. This is, in the middle of the day. First of all, what were they doing driving their trucks around in the middle of the day? Why weren't they working? This was not during COVID. This was before COVID. And after that, I was so frightened. I decided to go and take the carry permit course. I bought my first handgun. Here it is. This is my little, Walther carry gun. It's a PPS M2, if anybody wants to know. It's a 9mm, and it's a nice gun. But So I took the class and got the permit, and I still carry every day. I mean, we are in a very difficult place politically. And I think as women, we've always been vulnerable. And I don't like feeling vulnerable like that. So it's an arms race. There are a lot of guns out there. Anyway, so that's my reading from my book. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Okay, so where are we? Oh, we're supposed to have a Q&A now. We're still running a little early. I think, I don't know if we have one of our readers who's not reading fiction. Is that right, Vicki? You there? I see you're in the meeting. Vicki?
Hi, it took me a few minutes to figure out how to get my mute off, and then I don't know how to do my camera either.
Bottom left corner.
What, bottom left?
Bottom left, you'll see start video and stop video right next to your mute.
If you need it louder.
Okay, I have a friend who's helping me. She says bottom left corner is how I see video filters apply to all meetings. Hold on. And then okay, you may not be able to see me, but you can hear me?
What
Yep, we can
device
hear you.
are you on? You could tap the screen and the control should appear.
You guys are so smart. I do that goes backwards.
I'm going to send you a request to start video. See if that helps.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, I didn't know.
There you are.
You can see me? Good. Okay, yes, I am doing nonfiction. I've enjoyed listening to all you lovely ladies. I hope to do nonfiction in the future. But Elena, were you going to give me an introduction, or you want me to just start talking?
We've kind of been introducing ourselves.
Okay.
So if you would like to introduce yourself and kick off your reading, that would be absolutely wonderful.
It will be my pleasure. My name is Vicki Elkins. I live in Lexington, Kentucky, kind of from the Cincinnati, Ohio area. So I'm not completely a Southerner, kind of still Yankee-ish, but I think the accent's coming along. I have written and produced 3 Christmas plays, and I'm right now in the process of turning those into children's books. But I started a while back. Let me give you the name of my book. My book is called Frugal 911, El Cheapo to the Rescue by Vicki Elkins. I am 61 years old, and we were born poor. And if it wasn't for social services providing care for us, I don't know if we would have made it. So I've always been a cheapskate, El Cheapo. They were making fun of me on the way down. We just landed in Daytona Beach, Florida, on vacation. We've got a condo on the ocean. I got it for $400 for the whole week. The resort charges $199 a room. So I said, see, El Cheapo comes through on occasion. But I got the feeling that with the way our economy is going, with inflation and prices skyrocketing, that maybe I needed to get some of what's in my head out and try to put it in a book. So that's what I'm working on. And also, even though I come up with these ideas, and I talk to lots of people, I'll talk to anybody about how to save money if they want to talk to me about it. So I'm going to start teaching a class because I'm one of those people, I'm called a plotter. I've got an outline, and then I expand on the outline. So I want to use the outline to start teaching weekly classes to groups of people just to see if my ideas fly before I actually put them in a book. So with no further ado, I'll just start. This is for the person living with a high level of frustration and anxiety who is drowning in overwhelming debt and at their wits' end. It is hard to deal with life when your paycheck is 2 weeks away and it's already spent. Many of us have been there and done that. What if you're just barely eking by and you have that $1.99 to your name and some big disaster happens? $375 for dental work, a car breaks down. A bill shows up that you forgot all about and it's due in 3 days. What about those times your child forgets to give you the invitation to a birthday party until the day of said party, and you have to be the big blue meanie and tell her she can't go because you don't have any money to buy the obligatory gift? Anything can go wrong when you're in such a tight squeeze financially. You can't declare bankruptcy because you're not that much in debt, or maybe you believe it's unethical to declare bankruptcy. Excuse me. Years ago, people could declare bankruptcy and walk away scot-free. Nowadays, after you pay the $700 filing fee, and that's probably gone up, the court sets up a monthly repayment plan for you to repay what you owe. Although it's just a portion of what was owed, it still pinches your monthly finances. And to make things worse, your ability to purchase new items is messed up for years based on your ruined credit score. I invite you to join me as we take your financial situation, the patient, into our frugal emergency room and assess the situations to stop the hemorrhaging, the outgoing of money, and emergency treatment, incoming money, I believe is treatment that will affect change in your financial situation immediately and give you some breathing room within the next 30 days. In the next 60 days, you will see signs of health coming back to your whole wallet and perhaps a smile on your lips because you will finally see the light coming through that long, dark tunnel. At this time, I would recommend taking an intense look at balancing and budgeting to get your wallet into excellent health. There are many books on the topic, but remember to buy them secondhand. We're still being cheap because we still have a long way to go before we reach optimum frugal health. The frugal emergency room. Red lights flashing, alarm sounding, you are clammy with high anxiety and chest pains. The world is spinning out of control with an empty wallet and a pile of bills growing at a critical rate. Help! I have been there and done that. When I was wheeled into the frugal emergency room, one biweekly paycheck was completely demolished by my house payment alone. That left me with one paycheck to stretch across 4 weeks worth of bills, including utilities, groceries, and gas. I was commuting 100 miles per day to my job. Gas was $1.69 a gallon then. And let me tell you, I thought if the price of gas goes up, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep going to work driving that far. If only back then, right? If merely one thing went wrong, I was doomed. Triage. Assess the situation. What has caused this emergency? How can we fix it? We need to get it from chronic to acute and then back to good health. You may scoff at my use of the term back if your finances have never been in good health. However, now is the time to strive for that goal. Like a disease, finances can be improved and controlled with education and diligence. We will learn this process as we forge ahead together through this book. It's time to do analysis. It's time to do an analysis. ERs do x-rays, draw labs, and obtain a health history. For our wallet analysis, we will make a list of every monthly payment that is going out. This may take some time to research, but emergency rooms are not known for being fast. And this is not a fast food drive-through, but they do thoroughly assess everything that could be causing the health issue. Let's take this step by step. Step 1, look at your bank statement. What monthly payments are automatically being taken out? Credit card bills, cell phone, put everything that's going out of your wallet on the list. We are assessing the pain of missing money, and we must dig deep if we want to get to the root of the problem. Wallet triage. Okay, let's review your wallet triage list. This is where your pain is coming from. Do we have scalpels ready? Let's dive in. or should I say dig, cut, stop, stop, stop. Stop everything you are spending. This is an emergency after all. Don't buy another thing while you're in the frugal emergency room. I paid Planet Fitness $20 for a whole year, a month for a whole year. Did I ever go? No. Wasted money. Streaming services for movies, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon. Yes, stop. Cut the cable bill. I know, very painful. I understand. But please listen to me. Cable is not a necessity. A roof over your head and food on the table is a necessity. There are many ways to obtain visual entertainment that are much cheaper. You can get a digital antenna. I know. I told you not to shop. Now I'm telling you to shop. Confusing. But this $30 purchase will save you tons and tons of money. You most likely will have several movies laying around that you have purchased in the past. Watch those. Hint. We cut our cable bill by $150 a month and subscribe to Sling for $30 a month, which gives us all the channels we are watching on cable. We didn't feel like we were missing out on anything, but really enjoyed the extra money in our wallet each month. P.S. We are only watching Sling like one night a week. I didn't think it wanted that amount of money we were spending, and I brought it up to the spouse, who I think just walked behind me. And it took 2 weeks, but then met the agreement and we cut it. We are now saving another $40 a week, and we don't feel deprived at all. We were paying like $280 for cable, and then when I came home, she was watching the free channel, MeTV. I'm like, we're paying $280 a month for that. So I'm the one who started saying, no, we've got to cut some of these expenses if we're not using them. Okay, let's see, where was I? Oh, how critical is your situation? Let's see. You may need to cut the internet. You can go to the library or McDonald's, but that may cause problems because you might want to eat something, but then again, McDonald's is a cheap place to eat. Cutting the internet with children, especially teens, can be brutal for them. Sometimes I wonder if what we called double spending. We have internet for home and internet for our cell phones. If we have unlimited data plan on our phones, do we necessarily need the internet for our homes? Is this a duplicate expense? Why are we doing this? Did some big marketing genius tell us this? Do we think these things as must-haves? Honestly, I never thought of it until someone told me they don't have internet at home and only use their phones. Is paying for convenience costing us wallet health? By assessing our situation, I think we can look at several potential ways to use the cautery pen to seal up the hemorrhaging and keep the money in our wallets for things that really matter. How about addicted to audiobooks like me? Audible is not a necessity. Gasp. It's too expensive. But do you feel like you are punishing yourself or going back to the Stone Age? I've looked up the terms for Audible. It's $14.99 a month plus tax per month for 2 free audiobooks, but you have to pay for any others that you want. Watch out for the Walmart audiobook deal. It's the same as the Audible, which is not a deal one would expect of Walmart. You can get audiobooks so much cheaper by making a couple of simple changes. If you're a voracious reader like I am, 2 books a month won't cut it. Sometimes I read 2 books a day. I use chirpbooks.com for my audiobooks. These books are from 99 cents up to $3.99. I have Apple products and a Kindle app. I go to their site and type in my favorite word, free. So many books pop up that you will instantly see what you were temporarily insane to be buying these books when the free ones are just as good to feed our book habit. Good sites for inexpensive and free ebooks are bookbud.com, freebooksy.com, and thefussylibrarian.com. Also, YouTube has free ebooks and audiobooks. Libby is a great app to borrow free books from your local library. Sidebar. I realized I was buying a lot of 99-cent books up to 99 cents books. Being the cheapo I am, I decided I was only going to download free books for a month. I'm still getting my book fixed, but at a price that I like a lot better. Free. Are you starting to feel like you're gaining some financial liberty? Let's keep assessing. We still have work to do for our financial health. And I wasn't timing myself. Do I have more time or do I need to stop? Hello? Hello?
You have
I'm sorry?
about 4 more minutes.
4 more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. I'm going to skip some of this. Radio. Okay. Once we have assessed and stopped every automatic payment coming out of our bank account, we're ready for the next step. Let's look at every regular bill that we have, such as electricity, water, and insurance. What are some things you can do to lower that next bill? That bill next month, and the next month, and the next month. Are the lights always on, but no one is in the room? Do you have to flush every single time? Can water usage be saved? Lawn service? Mowing your own lawns saves that money and provides free exercise without having to pay for a gym. Hint, with a family, you could make a game of it. Show them the bills, the amount due, and issue a challenge to see what everyone can do to lower that amount next month. El Cheapo prizes to be awarded. Let's see, I wanted to talk about some of the other goals. Our goal in the realm of food is to try to eat at home as often as possible. If we create a set of meals that are easy to make and good to eat, we will eat at home more often. Coming home late, tired, and hungry, and then ordering pizza is killing our wallet. Hint, do you have teen children? This is the perfect time for them to be learning cooking skills. Again, training them for their future to keep them out of the frugal emergency room. And I've got a sidebar that says DoorDash is not frugal. I believe it's not. I haven't had anyone convince me of that yet. Part 2 of our food discussion includes eating out. I want to tell you, don't do it, but I can't since it's something I do as well. However, we can do a few things that reduce the effects on our critical financial situation. First is to stretch out the length of time between the times we eat out. When must you eat out? Monthly book club, grandma's birthday? Make a game of it. See if you can go just one more day and another day and another day, and each day is strengthening your financial health. You are doing it. This is going to work. Keep it up. Motivate yourself. You are on the right path.
Thank you, Vicki.
My pleasure.
Does anybody have any questions for Vicki?
I cut the cable in 2016. Haven't looked back, so I'm with you.
Yay.
Oh, I get rid of it too, except my wife likes the local news too much.
So we have a digital antenna and TiVo unit. So
yes.
Well, it's interesting to hear some nonfiction read in this group of, basically we're all novelists, so it's a little different for everybody, I think. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Our last reader hasn't come into the meeting, so I think we're gonna have a quick Q&A if anybody has any questions for any of the authors who read today. And then I think we're gonna wind down. Everybody's asleep. Come on, wake up, you guys.
Here they
I'm
come.
not asleep. I'm not asleep.
I know you're not asleep. I'm only
Me neither.
poking the tiger here.
And it's late over here.
Yeah,
I
no
have my
wonder
son
you're
coming in the
asleep.
side window and it's just killing me.
Going on midnight.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's right. It is over there. Well, I thank you for coming so late to our events. I want to thank all the readers who read today. I'm going to be closing up the recording, and don't forget, Rita, to send me a recording of your reading. Sorry about that. And I'll post it in the campfire for anybody who wasn't able to make it. But thanks again, both listeners and readers and us.
Well, thank you, Elena, for organizing this whole thing. So that was wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you, Elena.
Yeah, been fun.
So we try to do this quarterly, an event. Sometimes it's a special event around, like Women's History Month or something like that. Sometimes we've done it in the past around Pride Month. If you have any suggestions for themes or don't forget that if you're an author, you can read in the campfire on Facebook Live anytime. You can even post a recorded video if you want. You don't have to wait for an organized event to read. I think people like that. If you want to read and you want me to promote it, just give me a couple of days heads up so I can make an announcement in the campfire. Or you can just pop up and read. I've done that. It's fun. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks for coming, and have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye bye, and thank you, everyone.